right, Ty, you got your whistle.
Always. Good old trusty, man.
All right, the Justin Smith, are you ready for today's conversation?
You bet. Let's go.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Well, ladies and gentlemen of the 585-315-716 and how many area codes we have down here in Dallas. Today we have a unique special leader to me in my heart. This guy is the president, CEO, COO of Bright up in Victory, New York. And he was one of the first people in my life besides a coach in sports to really bring that energy, passion, and that way you can just correlate business to fun and competitiveness in sports. It's Justin Smith, guys. And Justin Smith, thanks for being on the show. Sorry, I get a little emotional when I think of you, man, even if it's 9:09 down here in Dallas. But I'm going to start out the gate, man. It's a 3-2 count, all right? And if no one knows this, Justin was in the Philadelphia Phillies organization on the bump. What pitch are you throwing on 3-2, Justin? And I think I remember the answer, but the floor is yours.
Fastball, baby. Bring it.
Fastball. High and tight. Are we painting the edges?
I'm going to paint it for sure. I'm going to paint it. I'm not going to make it easy on you, but I'm going to bring my best for sure. Going to go down with my best. Absolutely.
Man, well, and say it's bottom of, I don't know, mid-eighth, your reliever's in a jam and they call Justin Smith out of the bullpen. What music are we getting coming out of that bullpen?
I don't know, man. I got to think about a little country, probably something. I don't know. It's not Enter Sandman, that's for sure. I'm not the Enter Sandman guy, but maybe a little country. I don't know. We'll sing. Maybe maybe a little Flo Rida. I don't know. Club can't handle me right now. I don't know. We'll see. I got to think about that. I was a starter, so I never came out of the bullpen too often. But whatever coach needed.
And being a starter, Justin, I know you're not really supposed to talk to pitchers, and there's a bunch of nuances before the game starts. Did you have any? And baseball is the sport of quirks, right?
Oh yeah.
Especially in the pros, you're in there for a billion games a year. You're at 98. It's after the All-Star break. You see these weird things going on in the dugout all the time. How did you prepare for the game or clear your mechanism like Coster did, and for the love of the game? Did you have any rituals before the game going on the bump?
Well, for the love of the game, one of the greatest movies of all time. I love that. Clear the mechanism, right? I mean, it's just amazing. Great movie. Baseball players are superstitious, very superstitious. And certainly I had my superstitions. I had to wear the same socks every day, stirrups the same way, pants, all this good stuff. I had the same shirt I'd always pitch with on game day, all that good stuff. So very superstitious. I think just in terms of game preparation, it starts a couple days before you're making the start. In the minors, you'd sit there, you'd make your start, and then the next day you'd kind of regroup and do a lot of running and just sort of stretching, things of that nature. And then the following day you'd start throwing again, and then eventually you'd get into a bullpen routine. And then the night before you'd maybe sitting in the stands or 2 nights before, sit in the stands doing the radar gun for your buddy that's out there on the mound, and you're thinking about who you're going to be playing. If it's that same team, you're looking at little traits at the different hitters and seeing how your teammate might be approaching that. And then the night before your start, you're in the dugout, you're keeping the book and the pitch counts and working with the pitching coach on different nuances, things you're seeing. So you're getting prepped all along. And I think it starts a few days beforehand. If you're just prepping the day of, I think it's a little too late. It's sort of like that big meeting. You guys have been to them before, right? If you're just thinking about it 5 minutes before you walk in the door, it might not go very well. So it's all about the prep work in advance, I would say. So
what I realized, procrastination. One of the greatest lies that I was telling myself, Justin, was that's when I did my best work. But I then started to realize how that was one of the greatest lies that I had convinced myself. It's procrastination is this form of self-sabotage. You're kind of surprised with the result but you also have something to blame if it doesn't go the way that it was supposed to, or you wanted it to go, right?
Yeah.
So, and so much of the stuff that you just said in there, the prep, right? I'll get into this. So I guess I'll ask you a couple get to know you questions, and then I would love to dive in on that. But if you, right, so a man of superstition, one, could you wash that stuff, or if it it's juice?
Oh, well, there's certain things you wash, Kev. There's certain things you don't. How about that? I'll just leave it at that for the audience.
So
It's a good question.
yeah, I wanted to ask. So if we're out at an Italian restaurant, it's linguine, it's penne, it's spaghetti, it's angel hair. What pasta are you going with?
100% angel hair, no hesitation. I love it.
All right, angel hair. Is
Love it.
soup a meal or is it an appetizer?
100% an app.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And if you were to design a billboard or a bumper sticker, so everybody kind of got to know like what's your daily motivation or what's the message that you would love to leave with everybody for that day, whether they're going to work or coming home. What's that quote that you would just put out there to the world?
LFG, two exclamation points. Let's freaking go.
I love. I,
Yeah, let's
did,
go.
Jumping right into it. I mean, talking about preparation, talking about your love for baseball and sports. Tyler and I are both sports heads. I think what Tyler said was so profound before we got on is like just finding and seeing that relationship between business and sports. It's all about performance, right? Ultimately, did you use a lot of visualization when you were preparing for those games? Seeing the pitches. I've heard other pitchers talk about that, seeing the batters, before this thing is even happening. Did you turn into visualization and find the power of visualization and that prep?
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about that. First of all, Kevin, it's been so long. I mean, this was the mid '90s, right? I mean, I'm an old guy now, so it's hard for me to remember back to those days. But just having fun. No, I think the visualization component of it is watching that hitter in the box, looking at their feet, seeing where their hands are, how far over the plate or away from the plate are they. Every once in a while you can get a peek of what they might be doing in the batter's box, or excuse me, in the on deck circle, or in pregame or something like that. If they're taking BP prior to the game, you can kind of see some of the hitter tendencies. The good news about playing in the minor leagues is that over time you get to see multiple hitters multiple times, right? So you might play a team 8, 12 times throughout the season, and you might get a shot to pitch against them 3 different times. So depending on movement up and down in the system, you could end up seeing a few hitters 8, 9, 10, 12 times during the season in terms of at-bats. So you're learning their tendencies over time. But the most important thing really when you're pitching is just to be in sync with your catcher, right? And the catcher actually is probably more aware of anything that's going on. I mean, they're really the general, right? They're seeing what's going on out there and really directing traffic. And I found that just the more I listened to my catcher, the better I pitched. If I was shaking him off too often, it usually ended really poorly for me. So I just, I put fastball down. I'm going to throw a fastball, whatever location he was requesting. If they wanted a curveball, I threw a curveball. If they wanted change, I threw a change. If they wanted, some type of cut fastball, I threw a cut fastball. Now I always didn't throw it where they wanted it, but that's part of the problem. But really, I would just visualize this kind of little box and the catcher and where I wanted to throw it. And, the majority of the time it ended up well. There was a few times it didn't, but it's all good.
I never knew that symbiotic relationship that you just described between the pitcher and the catcher. I mean, and when you said the catcher is the general, from somebody that stopped playing baseball after he got pegged at 3 at bats in the same little league from the
Right.
fastest pitcher. I stopped playing today. I'll just guys that. But that was the day I walked off the diamond.
Yeah.
Never to return. But it's just amazing to hear how like that perspective of you would say the catcher is not the general. I mean, from the general consumer. I mean, I would think that you're in charge because they're always giving you something and you're like, nope. Or yes, that looks good.
Yeah.
So that's perspective. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. It's interesting just because everybody thinks that pitcher is in charge because they have that baseball, and essentially they are starting every play, right? Because they're throwing that ball. But it's just it's just the catcher really has the best view of what's going on out there, and you really, at the end of the day, they're in charge. And if you look back in history of baseball, some of the catchers are some of the best managers out there. I mean, they just really understand the game. They're just so intelligent. All the catchers that I played with, they're just super, super intelligent guys. Um, they really know
Played
what's
catcher
going
my
on.
whole life, and
There
I
you
kid you
go.
not, guys. I ran into a pitcher that I caught in Brooklyn at a wedding a couple weeks ago, and he thought his curveball broke 12-6, guys. And this is kind of what you're kind of saying, I think, Justin. I made him think his curveball broke 12-6, but guess what? That thing just spun, man. I go, John, I got to tell you something, man. I know it's been 25 years, but your curveball was like a spinning changeup, brother. And he could not believe it, but it didn't matter. In his head, he was throwing that son of a gun like it was breaking off falling off the damn table. And it was a hell of a laugh, 25 years later, and he was successful.
Yeah.
He was a placement pitcher, through decent, but just had no real curveball, but believed it. And if you can get your pitcher in that mindset, it was my best practice. I didn't know it at the time. I was just being competitive and trying to make my pitcher on the bump, thinking he had a breaker that didn't break. But it was just amazing to see him flourish with a spinning changeup. That he thought
Yeah.
was breaking.
Well, you can accomplish anything when you think you can, right? And catchers are definitely part psychologists, right?
Oh, the best
For
was like
sure.
going out on the bump, asking your friend, when's the last time you saw your girlfriend or whatever, just anything besides baseball. You need some ranch corn nuts, dude. I got them, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
sometimes that's what you need, for sure.
Dang right. Just I'm going to hit on. So you're seeing multiple hitters a year in the minors. You have different journeys with every time you face them. Did you translate that into business? Like, say your first business meeting ever compared to your 100th business meeting ever. Did you learn over time? Did you dial in after every meeting on the fails that you did during those meetings to get to where you are now?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think in baseball, you sort of have to have short-term memory. You've got to flush it really quickly. And in business, you fail a lot as well. Certainly, when I got started as a salesperson, I was met with failure pretty quickly, but I was prepared for that, right? I had failed multiple times playing baseball and the other sports I played growing up. I mean, failure was just part of it, right? And I think baseball, football, basketball, Tyler, your love there. I think that all these sports teach you about dealing with failure, and then what you do with that learning is really sort of how you progress as a person, right? Not just a professional, but as a person. And so we're all going to have these failures in life, and sometimes you have somebody there to pick you up. Maybe it's a parent or a coach or a teammate. And then there's other times in life or sports where you just have to pick yourself up, right? And so I think what I learned from athletics is that short-term memory is good, but you can go back and look at those failures and figure out maybe how you might approach something the next time to be better, right? So don't dwell on it. Don't let it consume your mind, but think about it. And I look today at what we do. When we don't win a deal or we have a situation that might occur here at Bright, we now do what are called after action reviews. And it's something that's very well known and widespread in the military. They do these after action reviews. Some people call them post-mortem sort of assessments, but nobody's dead or dying here. So we don't like to use that terminology. We call them after action reviews. And so we think about what went well, what didn't well, while we might have lost that opportunity or made that mistake, and then we learn from it. And that's exactly what I used to do in baseball. If I didn't have a good outing, I'd think about, okay, well, why didn't I have a good outing? Was I not spotting my fastball? Did I not have command of my curveball? Was I, not throwing enough changeups? What was it that didn't go well? Did I not hold base runners on well and give my teammates a chance to turn the double play, or my catcher an opportunity to throw them out? Many different things like that. But it all comes back to having the ability to have a short-term memory when you need it and flushing all that bad stuff out, and then moving on and thinking about what you could have done better when the moment is right. Right? If you give up a home run, you can't be thinking about that the very next pitch. You've got to flush that and throw and execute on the very next pitch. But later, after the game's over, you can think about, okay, what was that mistake and how do I prevent that from happening?
How did you, because you said, right, and I loved how you put it, because I think this is so critical. I go back to, I mean, your team feels safe that they can fail, right? It's an opportunity to try new things, to not get, you're allowing them to innovate, and the learning journey. Everybody's on this learning journey, but if I feel safe that I can fail, I'm willing to take more risks. But how do you not get trapped in that self-awareness piece, right? That I could have done this, I should have done that, right? I think that's where I got trapped in most cases, right? And then you're not really in the present, to your point. But what tools do you use, Justin, to kind of bring in that short-term memory loss when you need it most? Where it's like, all right, let's move forward, right? Take your lesson and kind of not keep precipitating on it, right? Where it
Yeah.
consumes mind, like you mentioned. How do you keep it small?
Well, I think, Kevin, it's something that I learned from my parents um, and other coaches that I had when I was younger, and other managers and business leaders that I've met over the years, professional mentors. Um, so it's just something that's sort of, I guess, innate within me. It's hard for me to recall exactly when I learned that skill set. It definitely wasn't until after college. I really had a tough time, I think, flushing it when I was in college. If I had, been able to kind of process it a little bit better in college and get rid of that a little sooner, I think it would have been very beneficial to me from a college perspective. But once I got into professional baseball, it just sort of clicked for me. And I don't know what it was. I think it was just my own mindset of saying, hey, listen, you're here. You deserve to be here. Make the most of it. Live it. You are living the dream. I talk about that all the time. I walk down the hall all the time. People are like, how you doing this morning, Justin? I'm like, I'm living the dream. And it's true. I'm living the dream, and I've been living the dream for a long time. And it took me a little while to realize that, I think, but I certainly have awareness that this is pretty good. And don't worry about it. It's okay to fail. And I think nowadays, Kevin, just in terms of what you're talking about generally, I walk around here all the time telling people, hey, we do not fear failure. We fear never getting a chance to fail. And we've got it emblazoned all over the office. It's in our cultural companion, which is sort of our employee handbook. And it's truly that. And I think that comes from not just me, but the other leaders within the organization embracing failure. And nobody gets crucified for failing. I mean, everybody's going to fail. It's human nature. And that's just what needs to happen for us all to get better.
Couldn't agree more. And if you've never had a home run hit off of you, I encourage everybody to get a ball knocked out of the park in front of an audience. Even at like 13 years old, Chase Bartley ripped one deep left, man. And is it not the weirdest feeling, Justin, especially as a kid? Like shaking. And I'm pretty damn confident, but I mean, that was the biggest ego buster of all time. I'm hitting cleanup over here, pitching, and someone yanks one. Like, I think it was the first pitch of the game.
Yeah. Very humbling. Very humbling.
That humbling.
Very humbling. Very humbling.
Island. Oh, man. And Justin, I wanted to go into so you're in the dugout. playing baseball after a game, when did you kind of look around that locker room and say, you know what, I'm going to go into business?
Yeah, so that's a great story. I've told that one often. I think it was my third spring training, and I was sitting around the locker room one day, and there was 110 guys in the minor league locker room complex, right? You've got short season A, you've got mid A, you've got high A, you've got double A, triple A guys, and they're moving all over the place. The locker room is incredible. It's filled with all sorts of wonderful people from all sorts of walks of life and all over the world. I mean, it's baseball has become a very global game. And at the time I was playing minor league baseball, it was becoming very global. And it was just an amazing experience, right? I got to interface with people there that I would never have gotten to interface with. And so one day, a buddy of mine and I were looking around the locker room, and he had gone to Tulane and I had gone to Villanova, and we were just kind of assessing who had gone to college, because baseball is still one of those games, and at that time it was very much one of those games where a lot of players were drafted right out of high school, or um, young men were coming over from the Dominican Republic or Venezuela or Mexico to play ball. They were 16, 17 years old, and we're just trying to assess, this 110 guys in this locker room, how many had actually gone off to college and had, more importantly, graduated and had a 4-year degree at that point in time. And after kind of going through this informal assessment and analysis of the locker room, we realized that there was only about 10 to 15% of the guys in the locker room had actually completed their education. And both he and he was a pre-med major, I was a business major. And we sort of look at each other at that point in time, and we're like, wow, we're going to be okay. We've got a lot to fall back on here if this doesn't work out for us. And that was kind of eye-opening for me. I spent the next couple of weeks really evaluating what my future was going to look like. And by no means was I going to be the next Roger Clemens, who had been my idol, or Nolan Ryan, another one of my idols. And there was tons of guys in that locker room with much more talent than I did. And I was just a realist at that point in time. And I was approaching 25 years old. I was thinking to myself, okay, do I keep going on this and bump around in the minor leagues for a few more years? Will I ever get a shot? Maybe I get a shot. I had gotten engaged in that off season, and I knew that I had this wonderful lady that was, I loved and was ready to start a life with at some point in time. I didn't know if she was going to want to be married to a minor league baseball player, so I was like, okay. And eventually ended up having an incredible conversation with the roving minor league pitching instructor, and he and I had built a really wonderful relationship. George Culver was his name, and pitched in the majors, threw a no-hitter for the Oakland Athletics, I think in 1968. It was just a wonderful guy, and we just had some really frank conversations about it. And I think he did everything in his power to encourage me not to leave the game. But at the end of the day, I decided to leave the game and move on and move up to Boston, where my fiance was at the time, and start my business professional career, not my baseball professional career. And I have no regrets. I look back on it with really fond memories. I still have a lot of great friends from my college and professional baseball days, and it's been great. I never look back on it, but got my start at Xerox, and the rest is history.
Wow, we both started in the copier industry. Yikes.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
guess
sir.
forward to. It seemed like you had a lot of hope, though. Like you said, looking around and seeing opportunities and seeing that you might have had more opportunities than most. You had this backup plan, 10 to 15% of your peers had, and I just loved what you said. And something that you mentioned, and I heard in a Hall of Fame speech from a Hall of Fame pitcher, was that this idea of bestowing wisdom from some of the game's greats down to the next generation of baseball players. And it's like this it's like this thing that nobody really talks about, but everybody knows that exists within the game. And he started to say, Justin, and maybe you can kind of reflect on this a little bit, is that he started to say that there's a moment in time where people stopped listening, right, and stopped asking for advice, and some of these kids stopped looking to the people that had done it before and asking for their wisdom. It's a 3-2 pitch. How are you picking what you're going to pick, or how do you visualize? And that's kind of what he was just sharing, is that we're not connecting enough anymore, and we're not, the youth is not asking people that have done it before for their opinions or their advice. And it reminds me of something I heard Coach K say the other day, that values haven't changed, but how we teach those values does. How have you continued to stay, I guess, in tune with the great culture that you built over there? Is it a little of the understanding that, hey, trusting that the catcher who may have a better perspective on your business, that you don't have to know everything. You don't strike me as a leader that has to have all the answers, but you're willing to turn internally and ask an open-ended question and listen. How did you get to your point of that? Was it sports, or did it just come natural to you when you
Yeah,
started that business?
yeah, I think that generally I've been a pretty inquisitive person all my life. Haven't been afraid to ask questions. Really have been a very confident person generally, so I haven't, you know, been afraid of making a fool of myself. If you ask my wife Stacy, I've embarrassed her plenty of times, doing stupid things. So I, it's just, I think it's an internal confidence. That internal confidence was, I really firmly believe was part of, my upbringing. My parents instilled a lot of confidence in me, a very loving family. Uh, but also one that, there was a lot of accountability in our family. I was held accountable for my actions. My mother, at times, I felt was strict. I don't think she was too strict, looking back. But at the time, I remember, Mom, you're so strict, blah blah blah. But she was just instilling, a culture of accountability early in me, and that's carried on through my athletic career and now into my professional career, my adult life, and the way I've parented my children and the way I run this company. We've really built a culture of accountability here. And I think, Kevin, to kind of bring it all back together here is, by having a culture where fear is not, or excuse me, failure is not feared, people aren't afraid to ask questions. They don't ever look or feel like they're going to be, stupid. I don't want to ask a stupid question. We don't embrace that here. There are no stupid questions, right? And so when somebody has a question, if when they ask that and you engage them with maybe another question to see, if they have their own answer or what they're thinking about from an answer perspective, or you're thoughtful, you pause, you think about what they're asking you, and you provide them that feedback that they're looking for. I think that's extremely helpful. What I've seen, Kevin, Tyler, in the last handful of years, and this is especially since COVID and this, work from home and this hybrid model, that, the younger generation has missed out on that really unique opportunity that I certainly had being in office, my early professional career, to ask questions of people with a lot more experience than I had. And I don't want to sit here and debate with everybody whether the work from home model works or the hybrid model works or the in-office model is best. I just know that in our organization, with such a younger, talented generation of individuals, that we have found having those folks in office to collaborate with each other and to ask questions when they need to ask that question, not, through a Teams message or even a phone call that might not make it through at that point in time. If you can just walk down the hall and ask that question to somebody who probably has that answer, it's very, very beneficial, and it accelerates the learning process. And so, that's what I found. I found that has been very, very helpful, and I got to create the culture that there are no stupid questions.
I love it. And
That's
there's nothing better than a human being that you can ask that question to. Like the other day, I was talking about some like testosterone levels with the guy, and my friend was like, "Let me just Google that." I'm like, "Dude, we have a live person right in front of us that's had that experience." And but Justin, with the culture you created, man, that's not a hard ask, I don't think, for a leader like you. When once people see your culture and get in there with that face to face time. And I was going to ask you, what really stuck out to me with you, Justin, was how you treated people. Like I came over from like a kind of an old Kodak minded facility, and I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like who did you learn that from? Because like it was very thoughtful. I always remember everyone you had just genuine conversations nonstop in my eyes, and that's very. And I'm always trying to scratch my head, being like, why was he so dang good? But I always come back to how you treated people. And Kevin will even attest to this. We have over 100 folks, probably 75 of them from the 585 on our show. They all know you, man. and there's so many darn Smiths up there. I just kind of nod my head. I'm like, I think that's related to him, and it turns out it is. But it's like almost through your whole family pipeline, even. Like people really value y'all, Justin. And I hardly ever even know these people I'm talking to. Kevin gets these people on our show, and they're like, "Oh, the Smiths," and they just rant and rave. Who taught you how to treat people, and how valuable is it just treating people like you do, man?
Well, thank you for saying that. That's very nice. We're very proud of the Smith family. There's a lot of us, absolutely. So you're gonna run into us. My father's from a family of 8. So pretty big, got lots of cousins, all that good stuff. And I learned to be who I am from my parents. They were both entrepreneurs. My father's still an entrepreneur. My mother's still an entrepreneur a little bit, but they were both entrepreneurs when I was growing up during my formidable years. My mother owned a women's clothing shop with her mother that was on the corner of Clover and Monroe Avenue here in Rochester. And my father's been an entrepreneur since I was a little guy. He started his first company in 1979, and at last count, he had bought, sold, started, shut down, I think 23 different businesses since then. That's a lot of businesses. Um, and and what I learned from them is that it's all about relationships, right? It's about how you treat the people that you meet. And I'm a genuinely inquisitive guy. I want to get to know like who I'm talking to. I want to know who Tyler is, and I want to know who Kevin is, and I just like to meet people. I get my energy from people. I really do. A lot of people are like, oh, do you love closing deals? Do you love this piece about business? Yeah, I love all that. Yes, I do, of course. But where I get my energy is from people. And I love coming in this office. I love going to client locations. I love going to trade show or events or community activities because I get my energy from people. People motivate me, and I really want to get to know the individual that I'm talking to. I just think that's what makes the world great is the different people that you meet, right? You're different than me, Tyler. Kevin's different than you, Tyler. We're all different, but that's great. That's what makes the world great. And so that's what I learned it from my parents for sure. My father is he's a relationship guy. I've never ever met anybody, and I'm sure there's got to be one or two out there, but I've never met anybody who's been in contact or gotten to know my father in some way, shape, or form. Maybe just a 5-minute interaction with him that didn't say, "Oh my God, I met your father the other day. I had this conversation with him. He's the most amazing guy. He's the nicest guy I've ever met." It's just something about him, and I'm thankful that at least a part of that sort of wore off onto me in some way, shape, or form. I was blessed from that perspective. So, but it is genuine. I want to get to know people. I love getting to know people.
I think it's that connection. And
Yeah.
such a big, but I loved how you said that the differences is what you seek, right? To find understanding, right? And I think we're all looking for similarities first right now, not differences. It's like, oh, if you same as me or you have the same belief, then yeah, I'll be your friend, right? But if
Yeah.
there are, I'm unwilling to change my perspective, irregardless of the new information that you're providing me. And it's almost this unwillingness to gain perspective, which is something that you and Tyler and myself, we sports, we never really saw the label, right? We were there to win, and I didn't care. I saw you could cross the ball from one corner to the other, or you were a great passer, you're a great shooter. Like, we celebrated each other and pushed each other up in order to win the game. And it's almost like we're working against each other in business, in other businesses that I've seen, Justin. We're almost in like this competition with one another, to rise or raise the ranks, and we're almost stepping on each other. And that's, to me, is one of those environments where I shut down. It's not that you're watching your back. And it sounds like the Bright, from everything that I've heard from the individuals that I know that work for your organization, and heard Tyler, you build on trust. What are some of your fast facts in leadership on how to build trust amongst your team?
Great question, Kevin. I think it really stems from getting in the trenches with them. You can't, you got to lead by example. You can't just direct traffic all the time. That by getting in the trenches and really showing people that you do what on a daily basis, you do what you're asking them to do, is very, very helpful, right? And once people see that, and they see that this is the way in which you operate, that you're not just talking about it, they understand that, right? But I think trust is just, it's again gained very quickly. You either trust somebody or you don't within a very short period of time. I remember when I got started at Xerox, one of the trainers there, who I just loved to death, they just really identified with him. He told me, he said, Justin, there's three things that you need to prove out in about 30 seconds of a first meeting with an organization. And I said, okay, well, Dick, his name is Dick King. I said, what were those things, Dick? And he said, well, number one, you need to show that you are competent. You need to show people that you're competent. So the conversation that you're having, you need to have a great deal of competency, whatever that is. Number two, you need to show them that you care about them as an individual, right? And so how are you going to do that? How are you going to show them that you care about them as an individual, and then you're not going to do something that could impact them negatively as an individual, right? And then the third thing is you've got to be trustworthy. And so I think that the competency, along with the caring and the trusting, is really important. And if you think about any relationship, whether it's personal and professional, those things come into play and they're established very quickly, or they're not. And so one of the things that I've tried to do here at Bright is, when we hire individuals, I've tried to get involved in the hiring process before the hire is made. I don't always get that opportunity as we've grown and we've hired more people and we've seen this rapid growth. I haven't been able to be a part of that all of the time as I would like to, but shortly after the hiring of that individual, I spend at least, 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour, with those individuals, just getting to know them. They've already been hired. They already met the requirements of the job, right? My team, very good at doing that. They've assessed that this individual can do the job, that they fit our culture, all that good stuff. But I think it's at that point in time where getting to know them as an individual, I don't ask it really at all about their professional experience. I first thing I say is, hey, this is a really casual conversation. I just want to get to know who you are. And if you're comfortable with that, tell me who you are. What do you like to do? And every week I have a couple meetings just like that. Tell me who you are. What do you like to do? What motivates you? When you're not here, what do you like to do? And then, Kevin, it allows me a real opportunity down the road to continue to check in with them on things that are important to them. Somebody might be, the leader of a drum corps. We have a couple situations like that, literally, like, and they're passionate about it. And then we've got other people who are into leatherworking and woodworking. And I've got some folks that are gamers, and I've got some people that enjoy going to sporting events, and some people that enjoy baking, and all these different things. And I can check in with them on those things, and they're important to me to see how they're doing. And I'm learning stuff that I never knew before. Like I don't know how to play the drums, but it's interesting to me. I like, what does this involve? The marching band, drums? How do you do that?
I see so many of your peers trying to predict the future in your job. They would say, Justin, how do you find time for that? I'm so invested in what already happened to try to figure out why it happened. And then I'm also trying to predict the future. How are you so present, right, in your role? Because you're slowing down to speed up. I mean, I hear it as you're taking the time to ask that extra question. It's not when we ask that generic question, how you doing, right? And you get that generic response, fine or good, or I mean, they hear your response. They're like, what the heck's in that guy's coffee? Just like Tyler's, it's like,
Yeah.
why is that guy joy? Why does he have so much hope? Why,
Yeah.
what thing that I'm not doing, but you're taking the time to be present, that mindfulness to be in the game if you're in the game, and I just don't see that across all peers. I see that the game's running them and you're still playing it, right? And I just wanted to commend you for that. I can just totally, now that we've done enough of these conversations, to Tyler's earlier point, it's like these are some of these small little things that you're willing to do that others frankly are not, and it pays dividends.
Yeah. Thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate the comment. It's like I said, just people are so important. I learned a long time ago that surrounding yourself with great people and allowing them to do their jobs and providing guidance and sort of inspecting things. There's an old saying that you get what you inspect, not what you expect. So I ask a lot of questions. My job is to ask questions. I certainly spend a lot of time on strategy. I try not to get down in the weeds too much. I do. I certainly get down in the weeds too often. I have to check myself. But if you just hire great people and you let them do their job and you spend time getting to know them, and I think it just pays dividends.
Yeah, overcomplicate this thing called business, and that's what Tyler and I say all the time. It's like basic fundamentals.
Yeah.
Like,
This is just so fun, Justin, for me, seeing it on this side. Like I keep saying, you were the first leader that really gave me some hope in the business world. And I'm not sitting here just blowing smoke. You can ask Kevin. I say this nonstop, and he's always like, well, my leaders sucked. I'm like, mine didn't. But there was only one, man, in business. I have a tons of coaches that I still admire, and I always scratch in my head. I'm like, how are the best leaders in my life was when I was like 9 to 16 years old. And then you kind of cross over and have a lot of experiences like Kevin, not the victim experiences in his mind, but just like people who don't ask the questions. And to me, it's like the more you can get into outside of work with hobbies and competitiveness and shooting at different targets, whether it's a basketball or a target or whatever, I come back to this desk. You know how easy this is? After I just try to, put up, make 53s and I put a time limit on it. And it's like 109 degrees down here, y'all. And I'm not even like slightly joking. But like when I get back to this, and I think there's a book called like The Five Arts of War or something. It was like from this Japanese jujitsu fella. And he would make his students go get better at something else. And they're like, but we're like, you're the best jujitsu coach in the world. He's like, yeah, go get better at these 5 things. It'll make you better here. And I wish the kids would do that nowadays. It seems like kids are picking one sport only. And I think it hurts them in a way, that versatility, for instance. But I wanted to ask, and I'm going off on a tangent for no reason right now, but talking about business, those 3 pillars that you learned, how important, because everyone always asks me about my success where I currently am, and they get very underwhelmed when I have the answer for them. To me, it's commitment and the follow-up. Like, I don't care how good you are on that first or second meeting. In my experience, it's like, where are you at meeting 31 or follow-up 32? When did you learn that was such a success for you, Justin, on the follow-up and doing things that you're saying you're going to do? I know we learned it in kindergarten, but is that your motto as well, like on your follow-up and commitment?
Well, look, I think, the core of all this, core of anyone's success, yours, Kevin's, mine, anybody else's, they're really, truly successful people are all very hardworking, right? They have very strong work ethics. And along with that strong work ethic, I think is just an understanding that, if you commit to something, you need to finish something, right? So I look back, I think, my first year playing youth football was probably in third grade or something like that. And it was tough. I'd never been through that experience before. I wasn't a big guy at that point in time. I was probably a little undersized in third grade and got out there and, a bunch of kids they were fourth graders. They'd already been playing and, they're a lot bigger. And I remember getting knocked around in the first, couple practices with pads. You go through like a week of non-pads and then you throw the pads on. It's a big day. And I remember getting knocked around and telling my parents, hey, I don't want to play football anymore. And they said, well, that's too bad. You begged us to sign up to play football here, and you're going to finish this. You committed to playing this sport, and you will not quit. There is no quitting, and I learned at a very young age, there's no quitting Smith. I mean, there's no Smith quitters. We don't quit. So but again, it gets back to like just putting in the effort. That work ethic is really important. I mean, we just had a great example of work ethic for 2 weeks with the Paris Olympics, right? I mean, look at all those incredible athletes. I mean, there is no question that they all have an incredible amount of talent. Some of it like just freakish talent, right? But the thing that sets them all apart is their work ethic. For 4 years, or, in this case, because it was a little weird, 3 years between Olympic Games, they had worked tirelessly in the pool, on the court, on the beach, wherever, in the water, wherever it might have been. And they just put in a ton of work. And the most successful people I know, athletes, or business people, or just, in their personal lives, they work at it. Everything takes a lot of work, and you've got to be committed to that, right? You've got to be committed to putting in the work. If you're not, then chances are you're not going to be successful. And I honestly, I see a lot of people today that just think they're going to have success just sitting around. No, you're not. I mean, you may get lucky by winning the lottery, right? I mean, it does happen. There are a few instances like that, but the majority of people that we all know, that I know anyway, that are very successful, and I don't mean monetarily, I mean just successful in life, whatever that might be, it's because they put a lot of work into that and they were committed to putting in the work, right? And so I don't know. That's kind of where I am with all of it.
Yeah, and how does it feel for you inside when you get to that point? Because like I remember I tried to slack off for 5 minutes one time. I was over at another company and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give them 5 minutes of nothing. You know how that felt after a minute and a half? Like it just not it. I don't know if it's in my blood to just keep it going, but I guess what's that feeling for you at the end of today? We're what are we? August 19th, 2024. When you walk out that building today, Justin, and you just turn your bucket over, what's that feeling like for you?
Well, sort of on to the next thing, right? Whatever the next thing is. When I'm here in the office, I'm giving 110% to this job, this role, the folks that need me to bring it every day. Then when I leave here, I switch gears to some extent. When you're a business owner, you never stop working. Like I'm always working, right? I'm always on, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business. I mean, it's a 24/7 type of thing. You might not be interfacing with clients or interfacing with employees, but you're always thinking about what's going on and what you got to, where the company's headed, and evaluating how you did today. What am I going to do tomorrow? And can I do this better or whatever? But at the same time, I got to switch gears. I got to go home and be a husband. I've got to be a father. Our boys, our three boys are a little older now. They're 24, 22, and 20. And so they're out of the house. We're empty nesters at times. They always come back. We seem to always have a visitor or two, but still a dad, still a husband. I'm a friend. I'm a community involved guy, volunteer, all these things. And so I'm switching gears from giving 110% to Bright to giving 110% to whatever I'm doing outside of this office. So if that makes sense.
Yeah. And how do you get, I have so many questions right there, man. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you get comfortable knowing that it never ends? like because I question myself sometimes. I'm like, because I have a 19-month-old daughter now, Justin, and it's just the joy of my life. But then I get really obsessed with business, like we call it Latimer in my house. It's like, put the women and children to bed and go hunting for some dinner,
That's
and like
right.
my wife will come in and she'll say, "Is it Latimer time?" And she says like 20% of the time I don't even respond. I don't know, like she's right back here. I'm just in the zone. But for a while, it's almost like when I don't think about it, it doesn't matter. It's okay. But then I start to question myself, when does this end? And it's just this, it used to be this battle in my head. And I just released the Kraken, man. I just don't even keep
Yeah.
score anymore. But I don't know how to, I guess, balance, because I'm going 300 miles an hour in here. Then it's time to go rock the baby or just sub in, tag team to whatever, doing squats, doing like Choctaw Nation hymns, trying to like, get the baby to sleep. And then I come back in here and it's full mode, and it feels so good if I don't keep score in my head. Do you have any suggestions, or just keep it going, man?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm glad that you're thriving with whatever you're doing. I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? And I don't think that there's a really good recipe, one recipe. I mean, everybody's got a different recipe for how they're going to handle, work-life balance. Let's just call it that. And, for me, I could work 100 hours a day or a week, especially when I was getting this business started. I was working 100 plus hours a week and doing multiple jobs. I had a young family, and I'd clock in. I'd get home, I'm changing diapers, I'm feeding, I'm putting people to bed, I'm reading, books, Good Night Moon, etc., and enjoying every moment of that. And then, after that was all over, and spending some time with my wife Stacy, it was, kind of okay, back on the laptop, back on the computer, thinking about things, maybe making some notes, getting prepared for the next day. But my way of doing it isn't necessarily the right way of doing it. It just worked for me. And I think everybody's got to figure out their own recipe for a healthy work-life balance and how they're going to be that. But as an entrepreneur, you are always on. When you own your own business, you're always on. There have been times, Tyler, where I've thought, man, maybe it would have just been better for me to, have stuck in corporate America at Xerox or somewhere else, because, I don't know. I'm not inside of everybody's head, right? But I just think that it would be easier for me to turn it off if it wasn't mine, if everything wasn't on the line, right? Everything's on the line every day here for me and my family.
I'm gonna ask you, like, what is your motivation to get up and do this? To show up as your best every day, both as a dad, as a husband, and as a president. Like, what is your motivation? If I had to ask, like, what's your daily intention, Justin? Like, what do you something you're saying to yourself in front of the mirror? Is it something you're saying before you put your feet in your sandals when you're getting out of bed? Like, if I had to say, what is Justin Smith's daily intention? Like, what is it?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Kevin. It has changed over time. I think, early on in owning and starting this business, or getting started in this business, my goal and objective was to build a career and provide for my family, right? Create opportunity, create wealth for my family. And but over time, it's really progressed to, creating opportunity and for my creating opportunity in lives for the people that work for me and their families, right? Um, there's not there isn't a decision that I make where I don't think about how that decision may or may not impact the lives of the 98 employees that work here and their families. And so today it's about creating opportunity and creating a future for all of these people that work. So that's the motivation, to be honest with you. I love, it's so great to see Tyler, a former employee, doing well and flourishing. And I have, many, many employees that have worked here that no longer work here, and I follow them on LinkedIn. I chat with them from time to time. I'll text with them. I'll exchange messages and email and things of that nature. And to see them prosper is just incredible. I mean, that is incredible. That's as an entrepreneur, that might be my greatest gift.
That is not, Justin. I think you just so perfectly put what the true meaning of leadership ultimately is. It's not the seeds that you plant and then you get to reap on your own. It's dude. I love how you just put that, right? Because I think back to, there's a lot of disgruntled people, right? And they don't cheer on your success, and they'll actually tell you, "Hey, well, I'm here if you ever need me," but they don't really ever truly mean that, right? And I just heard something entirely different out of your mouth, and it brings me back to Richard Branson. You know, it's like, why not? Why not give them the skills, right? Why not pay for their development? Why not put them as a priority? But what if they leave? Is what they always said, right? What if they leave? We invested all this, but what if they stay, right? Or what good or what? I mean, look at Tyler, the rippling impact that this guy has. That he chose to work for you, and you helped him at certain times of his life. I mean, look at that. And I think that's the coolest thing that you said today was you're getting the joy out of all of these differences that you made in the lives of others. At first, it might have been for you and your family, but look at how you multiplied the blessings that you were given to create this impact and really be a part of our community, Justin. So I just want to pause and say, holy shit, that was a holy shit moment, because I think if that was everybody's daily motivation in management or just as a single contributor, that's a really cool place to be.
Well, thank you for saying that. It again, it's been, I'm really blessed to have been given this opportunity, and I take it very seriously. And again, it's all about the people. I get my energy from people. They give back so much to me. It's great, and certainly it's a mutually beneficial relationship. At the end of the day, it has to be. That's why you own and operate a business. But it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun.
And Justin, I'll never forget when I felt like you for the first time. I was getting out of bed with a freaking mega purpose in a way. And it was around a deal we were going on. And I was like, wait a second. This is how Justin Smith wakes up? No wonder there's a dream to be lived. And I'm not trying to make a joke at all. Like that feeling I had inside of me finally, because it's like you wake up, you work for someone else, blah, blah, you just do it again, you hit your numbers, whatever the case may be. But having that true purpose, no wonder it's easy to treat people better. And it was my experience. I always value myself on treating people good, but I really didn't have a pot to pee in, man. It's like, then you get to this, and I'll never forget it. I don't even know what Kevin and I were working on, but I've woken up every day like that since. And it's easy to do once you have that a true. And I know the word purpose is just tossed around like a freaking dartboard nowadays, but I see where you got it from, Justin. I have a sliver of what you got, man.
So cool, Tech. I think what you just said, dude, is like you're so busy with your passion and your purpose that you're not comparing, judging, right?
You don't have time.
I love how you and Justin are both putting that, because none of that other little stuff ultimately really matters.
No.
That's really cool.
You listen, at the end of the day, fellas, what are you really taking to the grave with you? I mean, we're all going to meet our end at some point in time. That's just the way it is. And, we're just taking with us our memories, right? Our friendships, our relationships, those incredible memories, and, our values. And we're not taking any money with us. Maybe somebody dresses us up in our nicest suit and puts a couple little things on us, maybe a little makeup, or I don't know, depending. I mean, whatever, right? We're not taking anything with us. It's just we're going off, and it's the impact that we made here when we were walking tall that's most important. It's just that's to me what it's all about. It really truly is. And again, like I said, when I was younger, I think my viewpoint was different, but over time, and it wasn't very long after really getting going with Bright that I realized it's all about the people, and you got to have really good people. You got to treat them right. You got to have fun with them. And look at guys, I can't make everybody happy. There's no possible way. There's some people that you're just never gonna make happy, and no matter what you do. I mean, you're just not happy people. Luckily, we haven't had a lot of people like that. I mean, those are what I would consider bad hires. You're just never going to make unhappy people happy. So you got to get
Well,
the
you're
right people into your culture.
right. You said you're taking the time to get to know them on a personal level. Those soft skills are not really. We're just looking. Hey, did you meet this criteria? Great, you meet the criteria. Come on in.
Yeah.
And here you are and seeing how hard it is to build this culture of trust, right? But how quickly it can go away with a few bad hires or a few bad decisions.
Yeah.
It's a slippery game, just like that 2-3-2. Bottom of the ninth, right? There are some high
Small.
impact moments.
Knock it out of the park.
I just want to say thank you, Justin, for saying yes, and really, I mean, thank you for having a profound impact on Tyler, because he had a profound impact on my life. So I think thank you for your leadership. Thanks for being the light, showing and guiding others on leadership, and that it doesn't have to be as difficult as we like to make it think.
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been great. I was sad to see Tyler leave, but I knew he was leaving for all the right reasons. And it's been great to continue to stay in touch with him every once in a while. I send him a little message here and there and congratulating him on his Arkansas Razorbacks, either a football win or a great basketball win or whatever. Checking in on his barbecue skills. How are your barbecue skills? Your barbecue skills still real good?
Well, I don't need them now, Justin. Like, there's like 2 places down the road with these beef ribs, man. They have
True.
burn-ins all day. Like, I'd rather go pay $19, to be honest, with the little one around here too. I do have a couple smokers still for sure, but it's like I can't compete with some of these Texas folks down here. And I love how you check in and talk about good hires, man. I'm ready for Coach Cal to and talk about doing things right. It's like, whoa, this is how you do it. Like, yeah, right. Every other week, I'm like, another 5-star.
That's right.
Like, this is instead of just being the gritty Arkansas Razorbacks that we are, recruiting in state only. It's like my lens is different now with who you hire.
It is. It's all about who you hire, isn't it? So. Well, listen, I'm glad you guys are doing so well. It's great to see you. You're doing a great thing here. I love to see how much fun you have with this. It's all about having fun with the things that you're doing, and you're working real hard at this and all the other opportunities that you guys have going on. So it's great to see you. Keep working hard. Good things come to people who work really hard. That's for sure.